We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second, Lamons.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, meeting minutes are approved. Just a formal announcement to announce that our executive director has resigned. And I think I can speak on behalf of the board that we wish him well in any future endeavors he may have. So with that, we'll move on to public comment. Do we have any public?
There's nothing in the chat.
Okay. Okay. Moving on to payables then. Any questions on the payables?
I'll make a motion that we approve the payables as presented in the packet.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The transactions are approved. Okay, financial report.
All right, I'm going to display my financial report. Hold on one second. Let me
Okay,
get the screen up. And there we go. Okay. Can you guys see my screen showing the financial report?
Yes.
Pretty small, Rachel.
yeah, it is small. Can you make it
Make
bigger?
it any bigger.
I can do that, but then I'll just have to slide back and forth if that's okay.
That's
I think
fine.
so.
That's okay. Okay, perfect. So I'm just going to kind of break this down for you guys a little bit so that everyone knows exactly what my numbers are showing and what I was doing. So this very first column you see here is budgeted. That's the beginning fund balance that we budgeted for 2021 for each of our funds. The next column is the actual beginning fund balance. So where we started 2021 at. If you look here where it says 15 million here and it drops down to this line of 15.022. We originally budgeted to have the bond funds come into our bond reserve, but we decided that it didn't work financially to have the funds in there. So we created a project fund. And so that's where all of our bond money went into. And then the next column is our 2020 budgeted new revenues. So stuff that's coming in that didn't exist before. And then the next column is our actual new revenues that we've collected. So this comparison of remaining, maybe. There we go. So the comparison that I'm doing for the percent remaining is all about the budgeted new revenue versus the actual new revenue that we've received and what's remaining to come in. The operations taxes line, so this line 9, that operation taxes, is all about our excise tax. It has nothing to do with our sales tax. And then in the radio operations, line 13, I'm going to slide it over so you guys can see. We're at about 49,000. That difference is just lease money that hasn't come in for our different tower sites. For the sales tax, line 17 in the packet, this is through September, but we've already gotten our revenues for October. So we have 2 more months. And I project that will be about 2.7 million in this line. So we're 175,000 shy of our budgeted number, but that's through September. So by the end of the year, I project about 2.7 million. And then the last thing on this top section is this custodial fund. It was created because we have to pay a leasehold tax for, we don't pay it. KPTV has to pay us a leasehold tax to the state. And so that's where we're collecting that money to send to the state for them on their quarterly payments. Do you guys have any questions on that top section for revenues? Nope. Okay. So moving down.
I'm
Sure.
sorry, it took me a moment to get things going. On the sales tax, I didn't quite, I was trying to add the numbers up in my head quickly, and of course, that's a disaster. But could you run through how we go from, if you scroll over a bit more, from 2.074 to 2.7 that you said?
Sure.
With
Yeah, so
yeah.
that 4.4 versus the 2.2, that thing. So the 4.498 is what we projected as a budgeted beginning fund balance for that fund. The 5.12 is our actual beginning fund balance for our sales tax. And then for the year, we projected 2.2 revenues to come into that fund. And so far, we've collected 2.07 million.
Okay, but I thought you said 2.7 and maybe that was a misspeak. It should have been like 2.07.
No, so by the end of the year, I project we will have collected 2.7 million, but this is revenues through September. So we have October, November, and December. And I think those will come in around 200,000 each month. And so it will put us up to about 2.7 million.
Okay, so we're 3 months short, not just a 2
Yep.
month short.
Yep.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So if we're good there, the next section is just our operations fund. If you look at line 27 and line 28, it has all to do with our labor. Both lines, I believe, will be roughly in the remaining about 10% in each line, based on our budgeted and what we've actually expended for the year. These are showing 32 and 35% remaining, but by the end of the year, I think we'll be just roughly about 10%. And then let's see, if you look at line 31, it's our training materials. The big change here is we have a little bit of money left for PubEd to expend out of that line. And I've asked PubEd to look into it and make sure that they expend their full allotted amount for the year. And then if we look at professional and contracted services, I believe is line 33 here. It is low. And the reason why is because we budgeted 94,000 for Cressa, and they're going to only come in at about 60,000 this year. And then we also budgeted 6,000 for Protham, but Protham was completely paid out last year. So that's the difference between these amounts and where we're at with expenditures in that line. And if you look at the legal line 34, our budgeted number had negotiations for guild contract in that 88,000. So we had 40,000 for our legal counsel and then 48,000 for guild negotiations. They didn't do any negotiations so far this year that we've had to pay for a lawyer. So this is just the cost to have legal counsel, which is Frank. And he's coming in lower than our projected budgeted amount. And then if you look at the next line down, that intergovernmental professional services, the small difference there is because the GIS services that we have, they came in less than the 13.5 that we budgeted. And we also budgeted for 2 funds with the treasurers, and they only charged us for 1 to have 1 account. So that's it for those. Down in the advertising line, line 44, we project that about $5,000 is gonna come out of that line because we are gonna start doing the advertising for the executive director replacement, and the cost for the IT position that was approved and possibly for the facilities. So down in that advertising, we're budgeting about 5,000 is actually going to come out of that. So we're not going to hit the 6 that we budgeted, but that's where that is. For the insurance and premium WCIA line 46, that 30,000 right here, that included a budgeted amount for our premiums for our tower sites. I pulled that from the radio operations rather than operations. So that is all that's going to come out of the WCIA insurance premiums. Down in technology and software maintenance, this does not include what we have paid to Intergraph. That will be on the next financial report. So it'll be more than this 42,000, but it's not going to reach the $292,000 amount. But it will be significantly more than that 42,000. Arn, did you unmute to ask a question?
Yeah, and you'll have to excuse me. I'm trying to digest the whole thing. The telephone line is seemingly interesting, way below what you had expected. It doesn't scale up. Can you tell me what's changed?
Sorry, I do have notes for that. So for the telephone line, we do not have radio IP coming out of that yet. So that came out in October, but it was actually way less. We budgeted about 12,000 for radio IP, and I believe it's only going to be, I want to say about 8,000 or 9,000 is what the actual cost is. And the radio IP is only because we're doing 7 months rather than the full year. We're getting rid of that because we're going to Spillman, I believe. Is that accurate, Deanna?
We want to go to net motion.
To net motion. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that is way less than what we budgeted is the cost of telephones that we're paying the purchasing department for Cowlitz County. They're coming in quite a bit less than what we budgeted. So with those two costs down, that's why it's not coming in at the budgeted amount.
So for going into the future, that 45K estimate is probably still okay for next year and the year after. It sounds like there's some changes going on, so it's an instability. Not all the costs are really factored into telephone because you're changing things into other categories. Am I correct?
I would say yes.
Okay, thank you.
And then let's see. And the last thing I have up here for a big change is line 50, where it's computers and software maintenance. We had nothing budgeted, but we spent $1,000 on a new laptop for Deanna. And then for all of our travel categories, they're all really low. We didn't do really much of any traveling this year, but I suspect that we'll get pretty close when we start having to fly people here and do interviews and stuff for the executive director, get some car rentals and all of that stuff, and also for that IT position. So I think some of our travel categories are going to go up a little bit from where they're at, but they were all budgeted pretty high and we haven't really done much travel. So do you guys have any other questions in that section? Okay, I'm going to scroll down, but if you come up with something or you can't unmute fast enough, let me know. Down here, we have things broken up: equipment reserve, radio ops, radio reserve, sales tax, project fund. And that project fund is where we're pulling all of our construction costs and all that out of. Custodial fund and our bond reserve. The bond reserve itself, the only expenditure that's come out is our first half of interest payment that we've paid. And this 395, I believe, was our projected budgeted number. It actually was lower than that for interest for this year. So we're not going to hit that 395. I want to say it was like 330, maybe 330,000 for the year. And then if we just start at the top under that equipment reserve, we've expended 203,000. That was for one of the Spillman installations. There are no other budgeted equipment. Sorry, 1 second. Eric is trying to get into the meeting. He's sitting in the waiting room. I don't know how to, do you guys have controls to let him in?
I do. I just admitted him.
Okay, thank you. So there was no other expenditures expected to come out this year. So that 203 is what we have for the year. And then if we look at radio ops, that 97,000 is gonna increase. We just haven't paid our lease fees for the year. Most of them come in around October, November, December. And then in the capital expenditures under radio reserve, line 62, the only expenditure left to come out of that is the radio console retainage, which is about the 20,000. And here where you see a whole bunch of blank spaces is we budgeted to have construction costs and all of that come out of sales tax. And then in reality, it came out of the project budget. So these are the actual project budget costs. The professional services, contracted services is AdCom, More Power, CVE, those types of costs. And Norm, the capital outlays is our construction costs, what we're paying to Patriot. And then the miscellaneous project costs are permitting and those types of things is coming out of that 65,000. This custodial fund, it really wasn't an expenditure for us. It's money that came in from KPTV and then we had to pay it to the state. And then this bond reserve, that's the first installment for interest. And that's it for our expenditures for our other funds. Do you guys have any questions on those?
Question, this may not be in the right place, for which I apologize, and you can say you'll tackle it later. I'm concerned that basically in the county, we don't do a very good job of something that would be equivalent to like your bond reserve, but in this case, it would be a maintenance reserve. That is to say, you put aside funds to take care of what is inevitably the maintenance of the building, of the new building. So I wouldn't expect to see it here, but in the not too distant future, I would think you'd want to start accruing for maintenance as at least, if not more. And there are rules of thumb from the commercial world as to how much that should be.
I am not pushing off your question, but there is the budget conversation, and I promise your question will be answered in that budget conversation. And you guys will have a say in kind of how much money is going to go in. We did create a facility reserve fund, and we'll have a conversation about how much we want to put in there, but we have thought of that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. If you guys don't have any other questions on the expenditure portion, this last section is just our transfer ins and transfer outs that we have budgeted for the year to cover the expenses that were talked about up above. And then this very bottom section is the summary. So you guys can see where our cash is at in each of our funds, what's invested for each fund, how much we spent out of each fund through September, and what our revenues are. So
Okay.
if there's no questions on that, then that's the rest of my financial report.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. Anybody have any further questions for her? Just give everybody a chance. Hearing none, we'll move on then to net motion approval. I think that's Deanna.
That's me. Sorry. So in the past, the comm center has covered the cost of radio IP, which Rachel talked about a little bit in her financial report. And through the Spillman Committee, we had some pretty lengthy discussions. Talked about, did we want to stay with radio IP or move over to net motion? City of Longview uses net motion and has for several years. We had some meetings with net motions, some in-depth technical discussions. My CRP team joined in, which are all just technical people. Troy Brightville kind of led the law enforcement side of that. Help me out, Troy, if you're on the line, maybe Brandon, or I think Brandon was representing on the fire side of that. Anyway, we have come to a consensus that we would like to go with net motion instead of the radio IP. And what the net motion does is it's the transport means between the CAD dispatch and the mobile clients. We had Troy go out and get a quote from NetMotion, and for 140 licenses, it's $16,076 a year. And that's an annual continued cost that would be part of the comm center budget.
Yeah. Deanna, how's that compare to what we're paying now?
I think Rachel said it was about $12,000 a year for radio IP, but it was a very old version. So we have not updated that version of radio IP or the server, which we would have to do at this point.
Okay. And so we would have to, with changing to NetMotion, then we would have to do some hardware upgrades as well besides this.
We already have the servers available for that. And we've worked with a CRP team to make sure that we had a place in that plan to add that.
And does it impact our users on the other end? Will there have to be any upgrades or anything there?
In the future, if there were upgrades, this was just part of the comm center budget as that transport piece to get communications out to the field. And we had previously always paid for the radio IP. And so we just felt like it was feasible that this would be replacing it and it would become part of the 911 budget.
Okay, so no impact to users then?
No.
This is Troy, if I can add to it. The impact to the users as well as to the IT ought to be some pretty big improvements. Radio IP is what we originally had because it used radio rather than cellular before we had cellular. And this was a product that could do like minimal data. It could handle those packets over radio. NetMotion is something that is specific to wireless, to cellular. And from the IT side of it, the management tools are far better. And it just, like the city of Longview, I know that Seth has been very happy with it for all of their different users. So we expect to see a lot better service through this program than our current program.
Okay.
A question? So I'm always afraid these days of inflation. Is there a renewal element in this contract?
Do you mean like, is it automatic or do we have to renegotiate?
All of the above. I'm thinking that typically you would sign something like a 3-year contract with an escalation clause in there that would allow a maximum increase per year. I'm
I
not saying it has to be there. It just I'm concerned that we have to be prepared for some pretty hellacious increases in the prices.
I don't see one in this quote that they sent us, but we can reach out to them and get like a 3-year quote with some reasonable
Yeah,
inflation.
it sounds like you're not going to fall back to the old system.
No,
So might as well take the large leap is all I'm saying.
all right, we'll reach out to them again and get an updated, something with an annual escalator in it.
Well, yeah, that's completely up to you if you think that's practical. You've gone this far and I wouldn't want to hold anything up.
Most of our contracts are like that anyway.
Okay, thank you.
So let's see, do we need some action to give Deanna the authority to move forward with this? Is that what you're looking for, Deanna?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'd make a motion that we approve this contract with Net Motion.
Second.
okay, we have a motion, a second to approve the net motion agreement. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
thank you.
Move forward, prosper there, Deanna. Thank you for the work on that. Okay, next item is budget follow-up. This is budget committee work. The budget committee wanted to keep the board apprised of where they're at and get further direction. So I think between probably primarily Rachel, but Janelle has some things I think she needs to weigh in as well. So staff in general. Rachel, take it away.
Okay, is this also super duper small?
Yes.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
And that little thing's on the side again too.
Oh, there you go. There we go. Okay, is that big enough or do you guys need it bigger?
Maybe a tad bigger. These are older eyes, Rachel.
Okay.
hey.
We've been staring at computers for 30 years.
Since they've been a thing.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so
Jeez.
hopefully you guys can read this. I know the numbers in the packet are really tiny, so you may want to just look at this screen. I'm going to go through each of our funds, the revenues and expenditures. This is just a focus on the 2022 budget. And then at a later time, the budget committee has talked and we would like to probably next year do our projections for that 30-year projection. But for now, we're really focused on next year and what the funds look like. So what I did for each of these is in the red is just an explanation of changes, how I got to a certain amount, where it came from. And then I'm showing you what we budgeted for 2021, what we project through the end of the year, and then what we budgeted for 2022. And then the difference between the budgeted amounts of 2021 and 2022 are shown here, and the percent change. So the first thing, I guess, that I want to focus on, unless you guys have questions, I guess just ask questions as we go, like before. This first section is all of our excise tax. And what I did was I looked back historically to see what was happening with each of those excise tax lines. Some of them were going down each year by a certain percent, and some were going up by a certain percent each year. So based on that information is how I projected each of the lines, and then I summed them overall. So we're going to probably be roughly around 1.09 million coming in for excise tax compared to the 1.042 of 2021. And then this 1.07 is what what I project by the end of the year will be coming in at. Does that make sense to you guys?
Mhm.
Hopefully I'm not talking in circles. Okay, The next section is this Washington State Military Department CPD and equipment contract is the contract that we have with the state. They reimburse us 13.5 thousand for GIS services. And then the rest is what they'll reimburse us to send our people to training. And then there's a small portion that goes to language line services and 5,000, which goes to pub ed supplies.
Can I-
So
Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
On that particular contract through the state, it's the E911 state office. And they have caps on things and certain things by RCW that qualify that you can apply for the grant funding for. They call it a CPD and they have a operations contracts. We do not qualify for operations because we collect too much local revenue. We do qualify for the CPD, which is for professional development, your pub ed, and some GIS costs. Once they approve the grant, it's a block grant. So as long as the money is spent under something that falls within those RCWs, it doesn't have to be, exactly 13.5 to GIS. You can use what isn't spent on GIS on something else that qualifies under that grant because it's a block grant.
In the next section down, you'll see the user fees. And what I did is the very first quarter in 2020, we're actually billing you guys for your last quarter of 2021. So the revenues are received in 2022, but these are the 2021 amounts. And these are after you guys have gotten your AMR credits for the year. So this first column here is 2021 numbers. And
Last
then this,
quarter of 21, Rachel? Okay.
Yep, last quarter of 21. And then this amount is the first 3 quarters of 2022. So that makes up our 2022 revenues for 1 year. And then if you look here at this column right here is what we budgeted. So when I added those 2 numbers up, that's what we're gonna get as revenue for 2022 from each of the users. If you look at the very last column where it shows 1.3% rather than 1.6% is because it's the amount after AMR credits. So what I did was I took the annual amount that each of you guys pay. I increased it by 1.6% like the contract says, but then I had to apply AMR credits. So in reality, each line only went up by 1.3. Does that make sense?
A quick question, I think.
Sure.
Rachel, I got confused. Let's take a look at the 52,664 and 160. Yeah, that line.
Yep.
Could you describe again what that column means and the one right next to it?
Sure. So for because we're cash basis, when we receive revenues is when we have to count it. So I'm billing for the last quarter of 2021. And for 2021, these are the user fee costs with AMR credits, but I'm not going to receive that until January or February of 2022. So it's considered a 2022 revenue. So that first amount is the last quarter 2021 revenues received in the first quarter of 22. And then these over here are the first, second, and third quarter of 2022 that will be received in 2022. So it's 3 quarters worth, and this is 1 quarter worth.
Okay, you weren't trying to imply that your fiscal year is not the calendar year.
No, I was not.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so if there's no questions there, I'm gonna move down. The next line is the admin service fee. The administrative service fee for AMR increased significantly. It was based on the AMR projected numbers for the year. And then the AMR actual user fee cost was increased by 6.1%, and that's based on the CPI for what's used for their costs. Same thing happened with the corner. So each of those got increased by the CPI. So if you look here, that's what we project, and these are the changes from the budgeted to budgeted numbers. And this amount is just, the reason why it's so much more than the budgeted amount is they got more calls than we projected them to get. The next few are just interest, local sales taxes, and miscellaneous revenue. Interest is really low, so we budgeted 1,005, and we're only coming in about 200. And then same thing for local sales tax for this particular line. It's also coming in significantly lower than what we projected. And then the transfer ins is showing right here. So we're transferring in just a little bit more to boost our ending fund balance, but it's less than what we projected because our expenditures for the year are going to come in less than what we actually projected them to be at the beginning of the year. So that's it for our operations revenue. Do you guys have any questions in that section before I move on? Okay, I'll assume you don't, and if you do, just pop in at any time. So the next thing is salaries and wages, line 45. We budgeted 2.2 million versus the 1.9 from this year. And the reasons why is that the board authorized 23 dispatch positions and an overage hire of 3. So for 2022, we have 26 available spots to fill for dispatch. And then on the admin side of it, we're authorized for 8 admin positions. That's supposed to say facility manager. Can't type, I guess. So we have facility manager, IT manager being added. So those are the 2 extra positions. And then we'll also need to hire the executive director position. So what I highlighted here is the 2 new positions that we may have. One has been approved, one has not, and the salary ranges have not been approved yet. So this is based on what we project they may be. For the administrative positions, I increased them by a 3% COLA, but that is still to be decided by the board on what that will actually be. And then down in the dispatch section, I've listed out each dispatcher we have, where they're at stepwise, when they're going to go to their next step. And there's no increaser on them because they're in guild negotiations. So this is where they're at for 2021, and that's where they'll stay for 2022 until they've settled that contract. At the very bottom, I highlighted the last 3 positions. So 24, 25, and 26. Those are the 3 overhires that you guys approved. They have not been filled yet. Do you guys have any questions on that portion? Okay, and the next section is holidays. It's based on 26 dispatchers, and that's with the overhire that you guys allowed. So this 105 budgeted from 2021 is based on 23 dispatchers. This 113 is based on having 26. Overtime. I had to break it up a little bit. So we're projecting 40 hours a month for 5 months with our top step with longevity and lead pay for 6 trainees, because we currently have 6 trainees, but going into 2022, they'll be in training for only 5 months, hopefully. And then after that, I had to add in the 3 vacancies that we have, projecting at the 40 per month for 7 months of 2022 training at top step. And that's assuming that they get hired sometime between April and May of that year. So it did increase the budget a little bit there. 2021 was based on 4.5 vacancies, and 2022 is kind of a mixture of 9 vacancies and then 3 vacancies. So it increased it just slightly. Training pay is kind of the same story. It increased just a little bit because we have 6 dispatchers in training currently, and that's going to happen for the 5 months. And then we'll have 3 in training for a remaining, in here I put 9 months. I guess I should put 7 months to make a match. But in 2021, there was 4.5 trainees budgeted for 10 months. So that's the change in there. Do you guys have any questions on any of those? If we look at differential swing, graveyard overtime, swing overtime, I didn't mess with those. We're coming in really close to what we projected. So with all the new dispatchers and stuff, I'm just going to leave those, and then we'll see kind of where we're at, I guess, at the end of the year to see for 2023 if we need to boost that up at all. Same thing with call pay. I left it steady at the 330, and we're coming in pretty close. For medical insurance, we left it at the same amount that you guys normally contribute, but now I budgeted it for 35 employees rather than the 29 employees for 2021. That includes the 3 overhires for dispatch, and it includes the 2 new positions for the admin staff. So the benefits amount did go up, but it's because of those extra positions. Let's see. Social Security, that one went up just slightly, but it's due to the extra people that we're hiring. So we got to pay out a little bit more for them. Retirement, it actually went down slightly because we were paying 12.97% and now we're only paying 10.25. So even with the increased salaries and allowable positions, it did decrease a little bit. And then the unemployment compensation, there's a significant change. The budgeted amount that we had included L&I, which is now going to come out of a different line. So we budgeted $10,800 for that. For unemployment, we budgeted $22,000. And then for paid family medical leave, we budgeted $4,800. So as a business, we don't actually have to pay paid family medical leave. So I got rid of that completely. L&I is going to come out of the next line item. So I got rid of that completely. And unemployment is only at like 0.23% for us right now. So it came in significantly lower. So I'm going to boost that 5,000 up to 6,000. And that projected line right here is actually for the year at 4809, and it's not going to be any higher because we've already paid all 4 quarters for this year. Same thing for the next line down. That L&I amount is actually at 6538, and it's not going to go up anymore because we're done paying that for the year. So my projected number, I'm going to boost this to about 7,000, and I think we should be good in those 2 lines. Severance pay, we have been budgeting $81,000, and it was just like a rough number to use. This is what we've actually paid for the year. And then it was given to me a spreadsheet where how people actually break out their severance pay and stuff. So based on the people who we project to actually retire or not make it in training or whatever, this is the cost we think that it would cost to pay those people out. So it's gone down, but it's a closer estimate to what we actually think may happen. So do you guys have any questions about anything to do with labor?
question on the medical. It sounded like you weren't increasing the cost of the medical insurance. Is that true? Other than by adding employees?
We're not increasing the cost. We budget $1,550 for each employee. And wherever their medical comes in, if they are less than the amount that we budget, they get it into a VEBA account. And if they're more than the amount that we budget, then the employee is responsible for that overage.
Okay, and that won't change until the contracts with employees get renegotiated, right?
Correct. Yep. That's the amount that is in their current contract. So we can't touch it until we know for sure what their contract is when they settle.
So this next year, certainly we at the county are going to be paying a minimum of 9% increase. So in this case, your $1,550 a month, the $1,550 a month will remain the same, and the employee has to come up with any of the differences. True?
Correct.
And until a contract is settled.
Right.
The other part, though, we have non-represented staff here as well. So I don't know what the board's recommendation is to address that.
Well, that's something that we'll have to look at some point in time here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going down to office supplies. The way I broke these down below is if there are multiple lines that make up like office supplies, training materials, I am showing you guys what we budgeted for 2021 for each of those lines and what we're budgeting for 2022 for each of those lines. So you can kind of see where the cost difference is coming from. But if you have any specific questions in regards to those numbers that you see, please ask. For office supplies, historically, we've been coming in lower than our budgeted amounts. So I did decrease office supplies just slightly, and this is kind of where the decreases came. So you guys can see where some of the changes came from. I guess the big change here is for office chairs. We used to spend a hefty amount for very nice telecommunicator office chairs, and we've since kind of gone away from those types of chairs and moved to these gaming chairs, and the costs for those are quite a bit less. So I guess that's where the big change came from.
So are those chairs serving the purpose well, or?
Yeah, staff seem to, as they've taken to them, it kind of seems to be what many of the younger staff as they're coming in seem to really like them, and they seem to be comfortable, and so far they've been holding up very well. So it seems like a good move.
Okay, cool.
Okay, let's see. If we look at, the only thing I wanted to point out in the training materials, it looks like there was a significant increase of 10%, but our actual budgeted number in 2021 for Power DMS was too low. So we actually ended up paying $4,900 versus the $4,100 that was budgeted. So I increased it up like 3% from the actual cost that we were charged in 2021. And I think that's it for this page. Do you guys have any questions before I move on? Okay. Here we have the employee appreciation section. Tele week supply stayed the same. Employee of the month stayed the same. And then the new garments for new employees decreased by $20. Don't ask me why I decreased it.
So what are the new garments? Is that like sweatshirts and hats and that kind of thing, or?
Yeah, so we work with Pro Graphics and they have like clothing that they sell there. And when we get a new employee, they're allowed to select an item from there that is less than $70, including embroidery and tax. So realistically, it's about a $60 item, and then they can put our logo or whatever, but we allot $70 for each person. If they go over the 70, then it's employee cost at that point.
Mhm.
But that's what that's for.
Okay,
This next section is equipment, and this includes landscaping tools for the new facility. We're budgeting 5,000. If you guys have a different number you think we should put in there, I can adjust that, but that's kind of what we came up with as a budget number.
I would, this is Kurt, Rachel, maybe if we could put a placeholder or highlight it, maybe as you have there. I know we're gonna have ongoing discussion about that position and what we do there. And I guess what I'm saying is, in terms of, should we decide to outsource landscaping, that might be an item that we, again, put a placeholder on and look at as we have the discussion on that position.
That's perfect. There's going to be, I think, multiple lines in here too related to that position. If we do hire it, we'll need it. If we don't, we probably won't. So you'll see some more as we come down here. Under professional and contracted services, let's see, so you guys can see the budgeted number here, that 166,000 is not correct. I neglected to catch this amount down here, this $179,000 amount. So this number should actually be $345,631. So that's wrong. So I will need to correct that in my budget documents. But as you look through the professional contracted services, Cressa was doing our CAD administration and maintenance. For 2022, they'll probably still be doing quite a bit of stuff because for public disclosures and all of that. So I put it at the 60,000 that we've been realistically paying them. Sammy Brown has entered. The psych evals, the cost of them has gone up. So that's what that changes. Same thing with the drug testing. The cost has gone, or the cost is the same, but I'm doing 10 instead of the projected 8 from last year. And that's just because, you know, we have to interview so many applicants to try to get them actually cleared to work. This public safety testing is quarterly. So that's what we're paying now. That's what the increase will be for next year. Language line, I kept it the same. Historically, we've paid about that much, but the state will reimburse us up to $800. That's part of that CPD contract. Guardian tracking, I'm budgeted 3% increase. I don't know if we're going to keep with Guardian tracking or not, but currently we have it. So that's in the budget. Document shredding went up just slightly from 2021. So that changed there. The business license, I pay with a credit card. So that 83 cents is what they charge us to pay with a credit card. So I included that just so you had it. And then here, the CAD administrator, we had it originally at 18.5 thousand, but after some conversations with the sheriff and conversations he's had, we're actually thinking it's going to come in at about 24,000 per year. Landscaping cost, we put at $10,000. And this one, Kurt, I'm not sure if we need to increase it, if we are going to, I guess, have another service do it, or if what exactly we want to do with that landscaping at 10,000.
So you're providing for a service here. This is the cost for a landscaper.
I believe so. Is that accurate, Budget Committee? Is that
I think what we did was because the facilities thing was kind of up in the air. That we said, okay, well, if we had a landscaper and we kind of took some numbers from District 2 and what they have been using for their annual landscaping costs. So if we don't do that facilities position with janitorial and landscaping duties and, building maintenance and that kind of stuff, then these would stay in there.
Well, this would, but it seems like we wouldn't need the tools then.
If you
Yeah.
contract it out, you would not need tools, but if you had someone internal, we would need tools and this landscaping line would go away.
Okay, so it's another one to probably highlight.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Sorry, I'm just making little marks on my thing for things I need to come back to. This consultants is
you
just,
skip the janitorial.
oh, I'm sorry, I skipped janitorial. So this janitorial amount is also something that I wanted to get some idea from you guys on what we need. So in 2018, we paid the county about $36,000 for janitorial services as part of the breakdown that they have. And when we paid just like a little mom and pop shop to come down here and clean, they cleaned 2 bathrooms and a kitchen. But we're really going to need them to clean an entire facility. And their cost was $987 a week. So I did that times 52 weeks. And that was the amount that we would have to pay them to clean our facility for the year. So I didn't know where you guys wanted me to kind of land if we get a more like commercial cleaning company. This may be enough. It may be not enough. I'm not really sure what to do to go up or down with this number or just keep it the same. So that's why I said need to discuss, because I would like some sort of idea how you guys would like to do that.
Well, that number that you came up with was based on cleaning for the current facility, correct?
Yes, correct.
Small portion, yeah.
Two
Yeah.
bathrooms and a kitchen.
Yeah, so we're gonna have considerably more area in the new facility. So I'm guessing that our that number is probably gonna be low. I don't, do some of your other entities, do you pay cleaning services to come in?
Yes, I think what, oh, go ahead.
I think it was just you. There might be some feedback
Oh.
from somebody.
I was just going to suggest, let's get a hold of Norm. We know the square footage of the new facility, and maybe we get a few quotes out there and just kind of see what the ballpark number might be. Because I think if you notified them and told them, okay, the new facility's, 15,000 square feet or something, or 20, they could probably give you a pretty good idea of what the janitorial services might be.
All right, I have noted that. Okay, so then moving on, consultants. We budgeted about 10,000. We tend to use consultants pretty regularly, so I think that 10,000 is okay. Do you guys have a suggestion if it needs to be more or less? They're kind of as an as needed thing. We're
I
okay
don't-
with 10,000.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know how much we've been spending, but that might be a little skewed up to this point because of the new construction and new public authority and that type of thing. So it's probably a good starting number, and then I guess time will tell.
Okay. And then critical, we had it in 2021. It just wasn't budgeted anywhere. So I added it in here. And that's the cost for critical. If I'm
Is that
correct,
like critical incident debriefing kind of thing?
So that's a recruiting tool,
yeah.
Oh, okay.
testing and recruiting tool.
It's a dispatch testing recruiting tool.
Okay. Do we have any, and that just popped into my brain here, but do we have anything for our employee support after critical incidents? would that be here to bring in, counselors or whatever?
From my understanding, we used to pay a psychologist for services for several years, and that was set up under Phil. And then under the most recent executive director, or actually I think it was an interim, we paused that because it was determined we hadn't used it for years. Typically what happens on a critical incident, from my understanding, is the agencies have their own debriefs and they invite whatever dispatcher to that debrief. So as of now, we don't currently have any sort of contract with any sort of counselors for our own separate use.
We do have the EMP.
EAP.
We do have an EAP service, of course, and that's included in benefits cost, and that is, free counseling for up to 6 sessions.
Okay.
And then, usually just with critical incidences, we're included with the agencies, their debriefs.
Okay.
Okay, and then this very last line is managed IT services. I'm actually going to pass it to Deanna to explain exactly what this is for. But we do have a more power technology detail page in the Excel spreadsheet that I have that has it kind of spelled out.
So when we reached out to the CRP team back in probably November, when Bob Brager was here, we asked them to put together a ROM budget for us so that we could kind of have a better idea of what the costs were going to be to complete this project. And then I went back to that same group and said, I need some projections for the future so that we can put together our fiscal plan for what our replacement of, licensing, equipment, hardware, and support for the system. So they put together a spreadsheet for us. That's what Rachel's referring to. And a piece of that was the support outside of that internal person. So it would be IT managed services for things like the health of your systems, your network, your IGN, servers, switches, firewalls, the kind of more the heavy load stuff.
Okay.
So that's what makes up our professional contracted services for 2022. Do you guys have any questions before we move forward? Okay. The next section is legal. I left it the same as what we had for 2021. This year, we really are having negotiations. We'll be paying for them. So we budgeted 200 hours for 20 hours a month based on what we used them in for 2021. And then if we scroll down, intergovernmental professional services, we still plan on using District 2. There's no escalator on their contract. Treasurer's fees, like I said before in the financial report, they only charge us for one fund. So I moved it back to just cost of one fund. And then our GIS mapping for the CPD contract also comes out of here at the 13.5. We historically have not hit 13.5, but that's what we're allotted for that grant. So that's what that is. Postage, it went up. The change is because we're going to now be doing postage for us. So we have to rent a postage machine. And that was kind of the rental cost that was given to us from Cowlitz 2 for what they pay. And then our $35 about a month for postage. So that's what that amount came from. And then if we move down to telephone, don't ask me why it's over so far. Oh, we have the county, and for 2021, we budgeted $5,760. So I divided that by 4 since we're going to be here for a quarter of 2022. And then the rest are based on the actual invoices that we receive from each of these different line items and what I actually project them to be for 2022. And if you look down here, our admin cell phones, I've just, last year we had multiple carriers. This year, for next year, and at the end of this year, we're actually only going to use AT&T and FirstNet. So there's 9 phones, and that's the cost for those. And then this WSP access fees is $6,000 a year. There's no escalator on it, and they bill us quarterly for those. And then I got rid of that radio IP services for next year, but it was budgeted in 2021 at the $12,000. And then the 2 new items in this section are the phone and network subscriptions based on more power technology, and then that new NetMotion one that was just approved. So I have to kick that up just a little bit because it was a little bit more than that. And then this is the recurring subscriptions that we currently have with what More Power has set us up with. You guys have any questions on that? Okay, I'm going to move to page 5. All of our travel sections, I've reduced them significantly. And what I did was I took that CPD amount of 39,000. I took out the 13.5 for GIS, and then I took the remainder and spread it out over our travel categories. The only one that didn't take a hit is this 15,000 that we have budgeted for tuition and registration, because we're hoping that all of our trainings will be done online. And moving them online gives our dispatchers a lot more opportunity to take trainings because they can do it while they're at the console. They don't have to travel anywhere and do overtime and all of that. So we're hoping that that is kind of where the bulk of our money will come from for training purposes. So all that parking, tuition, airfare, car rental, all of those are part of that grant. The next section is advertising. We left it the same. This is for us to do some RFPs, RFQs, post jobs, and miscellaneous other things that we may have to do for advertising. Do you guys think that's enough for 2022? Are we going to be pulling mostly the executive director and all that stuff from 2021? That's what I assumed.
Yeah, hopefully most of the cost of that will be this year.
Okay.
But I suppose it could very well bleed over into next year.
Okay. Because I think that's kind of what I did. So with my 2021 projections, I left them higher for that purpose. And then 2022 is just for new stuff.
Okay.
Then copier rent, it went up slightly. We're paying a higher monthly cost for our copier, but we're paying less in photocopies. So it balances out. For insurance premiums, these are based on the quotes that I've been given by our insurance provider. This fidelity bond is just for us to sign checks. This tower site insurance, I moved to radio operations, so it's not coming out of ops anymore. I asked WCIA for the property insurance for our new facility and auto insurance for a new truck if we get it for that facility position. Again, that's another one that depends on if we hire that position or don't. And those are the quotes that were given for those 2 things. Do you guys have any questions on that section?
All that's through WCIA, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, then technology and software maintenance. These are the comparables from 2020 to 2022. Spillman, we didn't have it, but that's the cost. Smarsh is for our cell phone text backup. Bias was really high budgeted, but this was the quote for 2022 that we got. In Time is what we use for our scheduling software. Trackstar is what we're using for our performance reviews and other things like that. ProQA maintenance, I didn't put an escalator on it. It tends to stay steady. This PDCC is, am I correct, Deanna, that we're getting rid of that
Yeah.
completely? Okay. So we decided to get out of the PDCC, so that will not be a cost in there. I'll get rid of that. PageGate, do you know what that's for, Deanna?
That'll be gone. It's something that connects with Intergraph right now to send out messages to responders through CAD.
Okay. This Adobe is just for a higher Adobe subscription we have. GoDaddy is for our website. Miscellaneous is miscellaneous. Dropbox is the cost for, I believe, Deanna, myself, and Frank, and
I think we
possibly
have 5
another person.
licenses.
Okay. It's just to share documents easier when they're in big bulks. Intergraph CAD, we won't have any costs for 2022. And then curvature is,
Just to back up on that,
sure.
Intergraph CAD, we will be carrying that over for some period of time during the transition. Do we need to?
It was already paid this year.
Okay, so that's
The
already taken care
contract
of.
starts October 1st and it goes for typically a year, but we told them cut it off in the end of May. So they just
Okay,
charged
so
us
that's all.
out of May.
That's all
So it's
paid.
already paid for.
Okay,
Okay. Curvature just had a slight cost. That's the SMS maintenance. Could you describe that one, Deanna?
That will go away as well, Rachel.
Okay.
That is to support our Intergraph servers,
Perfect.
the
Look
hardware
at this.
right now.
Okay. The CCS console cleaning is for the company to come in and clean our dispatch consoles.
Underneath them, the floor.
Yeah.
We get bags of stuff, goodies.
And then this Office 365 is based off of what we currently are being billed for the Office 365 that More Power has set us up with. Same with this cloud server backup. And then the business email subscriptions. Those are all from what we're currently being billed. You guys have any questions on that section? Okay, I'm going to scroll down to dues and subscriptions. So for APCO membership in 2021, at the beginning of 2021, we didn't have a membership for everybody. We just paid for individuals, and we decided to move to a group membership. So this is the cost for the group membership. It gives our dispatchers access to do a lot of their online stuff that they couldn't see prior. Jerry, did you want to say something?
No.
No,
Good.
okay.
Keep on keeping on.
All right. CalCog, that's based on the quote that was given to us. SHRM is just a renewal for the SHRM for HR. Amazon is $120 to be on Amazon Prime. MRSC is the cost we're paying to just be on the MRSC for the SmallWorks roster that we use. The Zoom cost increase, it almost doubled, and that's because we added Jerry to have his own account so that we could run more than one Zoom at a time. This WMCA is a membership for a clerk that we have for the finance admin specialist. Nina, the cost was just over budgeted for 2021. So the 2022 cost is actually that amount based on the quote given to us. The State Farm Fidelity bond is budgeted in a different line item, so I got rid of that. AGA is also no longer a subscription that we're doing. And then we did sign up for a Doodle account, and that cost is $360 a year. Those are the big.
What's a Doodle account?
Deanna, if I'm correct, Doodle is the one that sends out notifications so people can like have meetings together. They can select.
It's to send out availability to schedule meetings.
Schedule meetings.
So you send a calendar out and say, these are the available dates and times. And then they pick which ones are available for. And then whenever
okay.
submits that, it's really easy to just go down a list of 15 people and say, okay, this time frame works. Instead of a bunch of emails back and forth.
Okay. I just didn't know what it was.
So that's it for that section. I'm just gonna keep going. So if you guys have questions, just holler. Landlord tenant, I did 1 quarter because we plan to be here still the first quarter of 2022. So that's what that is. And then this is the City of Longview, 12 months for the property space that we took over and the $1 annual cost for the space that we're building on. And then over here, we have computers and software maintenance. We're budgeting $5,000 just for any computers or hardware that we actually end up needing to buy for next year. Miscellaneous other, kept it at 200. Board and employee appreciation mills is steady at the 1,400, and photocopies I left at the 18, or I dropped down to 1,000. That was kind of the cost savings to switching to a new copier. So the rent went up, but the copy cost went down. So that's it for that page. Lodging is part of that travel expense that I talked about earlier for the CPD. The Washington State Auditor, we are going to go into an audit year. So I budgeted $20,000 for them to come here and tell us all the amazing things we're doing correct. Repairs and maintenance is a brand new section. And these are kind of the things that the budget committee thought of bringing up. But if you guys think of anything else that needs to be added, please let me know. We included utilities for water, sewer, garbage, PUD, which was based on what LFD paid. And I believe we increased it slightly. Property taxes, we have to pay these different small agencies, but we actually don't have to pay property tax. We're exempt, but we have to pay the diking, the noxious weeds, and mosquito control. And these are based on what the, I believe, auditor's office gave me as numbers to put there. For HVAC lighting and generator, we budgeted $15,000. I still need to reach out to the generator service and the HVAC service to make sure that this number is realistic for our size facility. And then this last section, I'm going to let Deanna speak on it. It's the IGN ISP.
So what do you have on the total? Okay,
67,000.
okay, and those are estimates. I'll talk about later, and I think it's going to be in an executive session about some of that information.
Perfect. All right, cliffhanger. Okay, so then we go to capital outlays. Again, I think these two, if I'm accurate, if we have the new facility manager, we'll need these two things. If we don't, we may not. Is that accurate, Deanna, for a utility shed and a work truck?
Yep.
Okay. So these are what we projected for the utility shed, for this size utility shed, and a work truck at $45,000. And that auto insurance is based off of this $45,000 estimate. And I guess those costs will go away if we choose not to have an internal facility manager. The last big change to this fund, and I'm going to let Deanna explain better than I can, is we're going to transfer out to our radio reserve and our radio operations from our operations fund rather than having it come from sales tax. And can you explain why we did that, Deanna?
So there are some restrictions on how the excise tax and the 911 sales tax can be expended. And there are certain things in our budget that we need to be able to show came from another fund source than those taxes. So because we do our radio reserve and replacement budget, we keep that separate. I wanted to keep the operations costs and any money that we were putting into that reserve fund, so we could keep a trail to show that we weren't using 911 tax dollars for that.
And I think that's it for operations. Do you guys have any questions on our operations funds? Or can I move forward? Okay. So going down to our equipment reserve fund, the budget committee wanted to see one beginning fund balance and one ending fund balance, rather than having them as two line items. So I moved everything into one beginning fund balance and then displayed below kind of where the money is going and what we're starting with for our reserves versus our expenditure rollovers. So this is our budgeted beginning fund balance, including both of those. This 150 is the interest earnings. And then this is transfer in for equipment expenditures from below and transfer in from sales tax for our reserve accounts that we had that build out for equipment replacement. So this covers the expenditures budgeted below, and the 702 is for the reserve. And down here, we completely got rid of the interface to CAD software. And that was for, oh, sorry, 1 second. Just tell you guys what was actually budgeted in there. We originally had First Watch, TELUS Common Code, and TELUS Unique Code budgeted in there. We got rid of that and we moved it down into this phone system for the ECW phone system clock synchronizer line. So the amount that was budgeted previously up there, we've moved it down here to do the ECW phone purchases. If you have a question on why we got rid of it, Deanna is the best person to answer that.
So we were members of the PDCC group, and there's some restructuring going on with that group. Most of the members are out of Oregon. The benefit to us was potentially someday to have some kind of interface with Clark County, who also belongs to the PDCC, and Columbia County, Oregon. They want to invoice their members differently, and it substantially differently. Instead of about $9,000 a year, it was potentially going to be about $45,000 a year just to be a member. And then anytime there were improvements regionally, we would have to pay a portion of that. That was about 5.5%. The state of Washington, Katie Myers, who now works at Norcom, is the chair of a committee that's working on a CAD-to-CAD interface that's kind of homegrown from some techie folks up in the north end of Washington. It seems to work really relatively well. It's really simple. And they're also working on a ROIP project, which is radio over IP, to increase our interoperability statewide, regionally. The costs so far look relatively, I won't say inexpensive. They look like we could absorb that. And we just get a bigger bang for our buck. So some of these software applications, the TELUS software, First Watch, I think there was one more on there, had more to do with that PDCC group and connecting there. And so I asked Rachel to remove those from the budget for now. We can talk about something different in 23. And to include some additional phone stations, because we're gonna have more workstations at the new facility than we do here. Where currently the supervisor workstations now do not have an ECW phone workstation there. So we need to provide that.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so then the next line down is the West Tech Stansel digital recorder refresh. We projected it to happen this year at 37,000. It's not going to happen this year, but when we got the quote, it actually came in at 20s, just slightly under 27,000 for the refresh. So coming in less. This Motorola radio console retainage, it can actually be scratched. That is going to come out of our radio reserve. So that line completely is going to be gone. Sorry, I didn't catch it before. The Spillman purchase, it was budgeted at 508,000, but we've only paid one installment of 203,000. So I rolled the remaining into 2022.
Rachel,
Deanna,
is
did you?
that, oh, sorry.
You're good.
Does that reflect the credit?
It does not. I was going to ask you, do you want to cover that here rather than down in that admin report portion?
You can do it here, it's fine.
Okay. So Deanna saved us, I believe, $50,000. There was some stuff that got removed from the Spillman original quote. So I will include that cost savings in the 2022 budgeted amount, and it will probably be per installment portion for each one. Is that accurate, Deanna? Did I get that?
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
And they were items as a committee we decided to scratch.
All right. I gave Deanna all the credit. It was actually her committee.
It was the committee.
Okay. And then under this capital outlays, we have servers or network CAD upgrade, the phone system, recorder, clock synchronizer, and console furniture. And this is all based on the equipment replacement that we had, that Deanna had put together for when we would need to replace equipment. Although this console furniture, depending on later conversations, we may need to add some additional monies in that line. But these are what we project to need for 2022 of those equipment replacement lines. Do you guys have any questions on those portions? Okay, I'm going to move on then to radio operations. The big change is Public Works 1/11th share of operating costs. We will no longer have that because they're no longer a 1/11th partner. But we also don't have the cost to cover them for two of our Signal Peak and Davis Peak site that we were paying for them. These are all just the 2022 budgeted amounts that we plan on receiving for leases.
Go in and kill it.
The $77 amount is just the measly interest we get in that account. And then
What I'm thinking of it before we move on out of that,
Sure.
And maybe this is a Deanna thing, on the Public Works piece, have we had conversation with them? Are they aware of this change?
The
Yes.
Public Works what?
On the Public Works operating costs?
Yes, and Rachel verify yes, correct?
yes, yep,
Okay,
yeah. Sean Roy's already reached out to me on it. Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure there was a conversation there.
and we also did the new contract with them earlier where if we own a site, we're not charging them to be on it in exchange
Okay.
for some maintenance, just like weed spraying or if we need gravel at that site, that they'll take care of that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, then here, this transfer in, I just changed it. It was originally coming from sales tax. It's now coming from operations. So that's why you see two of those. 2021 is showing the transfer for sales tax. The 2022 is just showing transferring from operations. We're transferring just slightly more because our costs went up slightly down in here in our expenditures. Inside over here. This propane and fuel generators, I highlighted in green because we were budgeting 1,000. It was 5,000 this year, but some of our sites, propane is only like changed every 5 to 10 years. So it's hard to do like an annual amount, but I'm going to check with Suburban Propane to figure out exactly which ones get checked every year and changed every year. Because we went years without being billed and all of a sudden we had a big bill. So that's kind of where that's at.
Is our new comm center backup generator diesel or propane?
That it's diesel.
Diesel.
Diesel, okay. So we're probably gonna have some costs for fuel maintenance on that as well.
And we had a discussion at the budget meeting last week, but Deanna, were you going to look into the propane option for the backup generators?
When you say options, I know that the one that they have spec'd out is diesel. And I just read it on the paperwork yesterday.
Maybe we're going to have further discussion. I know it did come up at the budget committee,
Yeah.
and it might be see what the benefits, pros and cons of each.
Okay, you mean like doing a change order? Is that maybe what you're suggesting?
Well, potentially, I know it came up the issue with going with diesel. There's some annual maintenance costs and fuel replacement and that sort of thing that may be cost prohibitive as opposed to going with propane. So I think it'd be worth it to look into and say, evaluate the options.
Okay,
This insurance line, we were part of the county risk pool and we had to pay insurance to them. And now it's through WCIA. So this is the quote we were given to insure our tower sites. And then PUD electricity is just what we pay annually. We've been historically paying slightly more in some of these categories, so I increased them in the budget, and that's where that change is coming from. And then for repairs and maintenance, this radio system maintenance contract is what we currently have with Day Wireless. If we stick with Day Wireless, I have been told that after 2022, it is going to increase. I don't know what that's going to look like. So just keep that in mind. And I believe we only extended for a 1-year extension on the current ones. So we may be going out for a RFP for that. Is that correct, Deanna? Or we'll need to at some point.
we get into this new building, then we'll have time to put together an RFP request for bids.
Okay. So I'm hearing Deanna has no time to do that right now. Okay, so the next thing is our generator maintenance. Before we went with Pacific Power, and that's what we paid per year. I believe theirs increased as well, but now we're doing it through Cummins, which is a state contract. We did a 5-year contract, so this amount will stay steady for 5 years. And this is what we're paying now for our generator. And Pacific Power was not on the state contract when I looked, so. Generator repairs, we left at 12,000. And then we have our HVAC, and they come 3 times a year. We used to have Denali, and we moved to Entech. Denali prices for our 2021 was based off our 2020 costs, not our 2021 costs. So I think this is slightly lower than what we actually would have paid for 2021. But these are the new costs using NTEC. And I believe Denali's costs also went up significantly more. So they're probably pretty equal to what we're paying for NTEC. And then, let's see, sorry. I think that was the end of that page. Do you guys have any questions on that page? Okay, so moving on to landscape maintenance. I guess we had nothing budgeted for 2022, but this is the actual cost for the landscape maintenance. And then just miscellaneous repairs at 5,000. Property taxes tend to come in about the same every year for those radio sites that we pay property tax on. So I left those the same. And then lease rentals, I adjusted based on our different contracts that we have with the different lease sites. So that increased just slightly, and those are our 2022 costs, and those show right here. Oh, I actually decreased, sorry. That's because we got rid of this Deer Island site that we were gonna have for 2021. So it decreased by that small amount.
Also on the Signal Peak, that's decrease is because
Yes.
we removed Public Works from that contract and they will have their own contract, which Dana Geigler is currently reviewing.
Okay. And I think the 30,000 for Davis Peak is a slightly higher than what Day Wireless said, but it was so close. There was no point to change it to something else. So that's it for those. And this last one is a net motion in here at 27,000. Is that the right amount for net motion?
No,
Okay.
where are you seeing that? Hold on here. Do we have that entered twice? I feel like
I'm
you,
thinking we do because that was in ops, right?
yeah,
Mhm.
I think
Okay.
that you already had that in there as the 16,000 and whatever, 16,076. I think that entry needs to go. It's a duplicate.
Okay, I'm gonna scratch that then. Perfect. And so that is it for this fund. Do you guys have any questions before I move to the next one? Okey-dokey. So radio reserve. Again, we just wanted to have one beginning fund balance and one ending fund balance. So we combined everything for those two. I still had to show two because in 2021 we have both, but in 2022 we'll just have one. We're not getting that 1/11th share of Public Works into this account either. So that's a change. And we just budgeted nothing for 2021. The only reason the other one had a budgeted number for 2021 is because we had to pay they had to pay one last quarter from 2020. And the transfers are just to transfer in for our radio replacement reserve fund and then covering expenditures that were scheduled from 2021 that were not completed. And so then if we look down in our actual expenditures, this amount here is wrong. So we budgeted 549,000. We will not complete that amount this year. And let me see if I believe I have it written down. Sorry, we've only spent like $100,000 and the rest is going to roll into 2022 for the radio improvement project that we have with Day Wireless. So I have to update those numbers, but this will not happen. And this amount's going to change slightly based on what we've spent. And then this line right here, this capital improvements, is the release of our radio retainage. And then that emergency microwave that was approved for the Hall of Justice to Rainier site is what is budgeted in here. And then, so that's the projected 2021 that's left to come out is that. And then the $475,000 amount is based on the radio replacement schedule that Deanna had put together. And I believe that is it. Do you guys have any questions on that section? I will get all of that updated and bring you clean numbers the next time that I see you. Okay. The next fund is sales tax. And here the increase is, I projected the 2.69, and so I budgeted roughly around the same amount. I think I took the 2021 budgeted number and increased it by 19%, and it put us at 2.67. And then in our projected long-term increases, I left it at 5%. And I did get numbers from, I believe her name is Jamie Hops, who also collects the sales tax revenues. And their revenues came in on average about a 6% increase. So 5 was safe because theirs also includes the COVID years and stuff. So we believe it's a little bit skewed higher because of that. This is interest. We're just not getting much interest. So that's what we have. And then this change here is because the bond funds went into our project fund rather than sales tax. And expenditure wise, we have professional contracted service, capital outlays, and miscellaneous project costs. Those are all coming out of our project fund. So nothing came out of sales tax for those. And then our transfer outs, the radio replacement reserve, radio operations, and radio reserve are all coming out of our operations fund instead of this fund. So that's the change here. And the significant increase in operations is because operations is absorbing all of those extra costs from those ones that we took out of here. And so they're reflected in that line item. And then the transfers are either based on what we have for radio replacement reserve or equipment replacement reserve amounts, and their actual expenditures that we have budgeted in the funds that you've already seen. The one new item is this transfer out to facility reserve. And Arn, this is the one that I was talking about. We created this facility reserve. Deanna spoke to Norm. He said it would be suggested to put 1/30 of the cost of the new facility put away into a facility reserve. But that amount came in at 300,000. The budget committee was thinking like 100,000. So we broke even and we selected 200,000. But that is a board conversation on how much you guys want to actually put away in this fund. But right now it's at 200,000 a year.
Yeah, I think in general practice, even the 30-year number is probably a little on the low side. You've got two things. One is a total replacement cost or the amortization of the building. And that you do the lifetime on it. Maybe it's a 50-year building, but all of that has included what you call the annual maintenance, the repairing of the HVAC system, which is in the last 50 years and all that kind of stuff. And I would recommend something higher, but I know it's not going to be a popular thing, but that's why I claim we in the county are typically what I would call slumlords. We let things go because we don't have enough money set aside for the maintenance. Anyhow, but that's all I have to say on that. I appreciate that it is there, though.
Guys have any thoughts?
People are probably starting to get a little bit numb. Yeah, that's something we may address further in our long range planning. Hopefully this next year we can break out some time for the board to discuss those kinds of issues in more detail and just give some direction then on how we want to move forward in the future.
I agree. I don't think there's any danger that we have to stand on our heads. 200K is okay at the moment.
Just it's a starting point.
Yeah.
So the last thing is transfer out to bond, and that's the actual amount that we'll transfer out this year. And I'm going to double check that budgeted amount because I have the actual amount that it should be. So I will verify that. And oh, nope. Here I have notes for myself. The budgeted amount for 2022 is accurate. The projected amount for 2021 is actually going to be $329,307. So I just need to update that projection. And that is it for sales tax. You guys have any questions on that one? We are almost done.
Could I
Sure.
jump in there? It's really not anything to do with the budget, but I want to see Arn standing on his head.
Okay, so then we have the stabilization reserve fund. This was set up by policy that we would reserve 10% of our operations costs, which I take into account operations and radio operations, and 1 year of debt service. So that's what this fund has in it. That's what we are going to start with. We'll probably get some interest, and there's nothing that needs to be transferred in here. I think we're covering the 10% and the 1 year already in this year. So no big news there. And that's it for that one. Bond reserve. This one is just set up for us to make payments for our bonds. So this is what we have budgeted to come out. I need to adjust these projections, but the 2020 budget numbers are accurate. And then we have the project fund. The project fund is where we actually are expending money out of to take care of this facility project. So the project fund revenues were the actual bond came in here, and this is what we projected for interest. And then here we have what we project through the end of the year costs, and then what's going to roll into 2022 to finish up the project. So we have about 12 million, and then we have about 3 million rolling into the next year to complete the project. And if you don't have any questions on that, this custodial fund, again, is just doing that leasehold tax for KPTV. And then this facility reserve is just that 200,000 that we're going to start reserving for the facility replacement. The $60 is interest based on putting $200,000 away. And that's it. Page 14, we're done.
Okay, is everybody still awake? The budget committee's been working hard, obviously. And then we'll bring this back this next month for with some final numbers, hopefully, so we can have a budget for next year. Any other questions or comments on that?
I just want to say good job on that, Rachel, and thank you for the detail, and that was great.
Yes. Thank you to the whole budget committee. Rachel has been a great addition to that, or piece to that. that committee. So couldn't do it without you. So thank you. So moving on, resolution 2018-028A, and it's an edit. So it's that. Which staff members talking on that one?
I can. It was just brought to our attention that the last job on here is that IT vendor manager. And there was a typo in the step increases. Every step should have been a 5% increase. And at one point there was only a like 3-point-something% increase. So this is just has all the steps corrected at a 5% increase. And that's all that was. Every other job in the description was correct and their increases were correct.
Okay. So I would entertain a motion to make that correction.
Motion to approve Hamilton.
Okay.
Second, McKitster.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Director recruitment. In the last go round, we had a contract with Prothman, and I know some of you in discussions we've had to mention that there may be a since it's been less than a year since their last recruitment, that we may use them again because they may waive fees. I have explored that. The only fee they waive is their administrative fee, which I think was about $18,000. And the rest of it, all the expense portion of it, they would still charge. So that would just depend on advertising fees, travel costs, all those kinds of things. So it's kind of hard to say at this point what that could be. I know there's been some concerns, I guess, about their services in the past. And talking with a few of you, some of you have, both board members and staff have recommended that we try to just take this on with our existing staff instead of hiring another headhunting company. So I wanted to open it up for some discussion and see what direction the board would like to go.
So I guess if staff has the time, I mean, I assume they told you that, but I'm not sure who that is, but we just want to make sure that before we go on and say, yeah, let's let staff do it.
Yeah.
I'll speak up if that's all right. This is Janelle Edwards. Hi, I'm the HR generalist here. I have the time and the capability to at least help coordinate this search. In my previous experience, I have recruited executive level positions, but I don't necessarily have the expertise in 911, and that's where I would lean heavily on Deanna. I think between the two of us, Deanna has plenty of networks throughout the state and maybe even further in the 911 industry. And then I have experience just recruiting in general. I think that we could at least, between the two of us, come up with a very good applicant pool and then move forward with figuring out who would be on the interview panels. But I think between the two of us, we probably could handle at least coming up with an applicant pool just as good as Prothman, if not better.
Thank you.
Andy, also, I kind of went through the budget prior to this meeting with Rachel, and where she had indicated on her financial report the funds that had not been expended for things like travel, meals, hotel, lodging, I think there's a little over $30,000 there in that section that budget wise, I think we would be in a good situation to spend the money on the advertising of recruitment, social media parts of that, and other networking if there were costs associated with that.
Thank you. Sounds good.
Okay.
And I would love to have other members of the board or alternates if you're interested. Your help would be great because we all know somebody and they know somebody. So
Diana, this is Chet McGinster. Question, or maybe a statement. I don't think we should look at anybody that's retired out of California.
bingo.
I mean, the police department learned that several times. So I was kind of kidding, but kind of serious.
I mean, they can apply. Anyone can apply.
Sure.
Well, I think last go around, we did also have a hiring committee that consisted of both staff and some board members. If some board members may be interested in sitting in on that, I can speak up.
I know the sheriff did a great job last time, so I think that the sheriff should be on the board.
And as I recall, Andrew Hamilton was as well, and his input was vital.
I heard they were both good.
Yeah, Kurt has already told me that I can't be on this one.
Well, I'd be willing to serve and not to, I just asked Kurt, I don't know if Chris Smith would be available to participate in that process. I know his name was mentioned. Maybe me and Ellen had a discussion on that, if willing to volunteer his services.
If he has the time, I'm willing to allow him to provide those, but I know he's there and I'll let him speak for himself. Chris?
I would be happy to participate.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm not hearing anybody jumping up and down to go out and hire a headhunter. So it sounds like maybe this is the direction we should go then. And I would certainly be willing to participate as well.
Alan, I just have a question. I agree with the direction we're going. I think it's a good alternative, and I think one we need to explore. I do believe so that in Prothman's contract, didn't we have up to a year or so whereby he would waive his administrative fee?
Yeah, yes. And that's what I was mentioning, that would be the one piece that they would waive. All the other expenses they would we would incur. So
when is that 1 year period up?
I would have to look at that again. We're probably very, very, very close to it.
Okay, I was just curious because, if we had some time here, maybe we go through our process. I mean, it's a difficult market these days to find employees and recruit them. I'll be honest. I think finding good qualified employees. And I appreciate staff willing to take this on, but I was wondering if, perhaps we didn't have much success. If we wanted to go back to a recruiter, if this would still be available to us, but it sounds like maybe that would not be the case.
I think we would be, I think we would probably end up going past that deadline. I think we're still within it right now, but in a month or two, we would be well past that deadline.
All right.
It's 1 year from.
Alan, I was gonna say it's 1 year from the date that we hired Dave officially.
Okay, so we have about 2 months then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So 2 months seems to fly by pretty quick.
Sure.
Okay, well, generally speaking, we can take a stab at it in-house. I guess we can always come back and revisit if that doesn't work out. So I guess that's the direction we'll go then, unless I hear some other thoughts on it.
Just wonder, Alan, somebody from the fire side might want to volunteer to step up, but other than yourself, but yeah, I know as chairman, you have wear a different hat, maybe somebody.
We-
One of the
we
fire
can-
districts.
We can certainly reach out. I don't know if anybody's still on. Currently, if not, we can
Alan, didn't you say that you would be part of the process?
yes, I'm willing to do that, but I think Brad was suggesting, since my role as chairman with this, that maybe someone else from fire would like to step in as well.
If nobody else will, I'd be happy to volunteer for that.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think we're gonna have a lot of people jumping up and down to add more work to their schedule, so. But I appreciate that. So, okay, I think we have the beginnings of it. I guess we can always reach out if we need additional assistance.
Do we have a lead person identified? Is that you, Alan, or?
At this point, yes, and we'll figure that out as we get together.
Okay, thank you.
And
So
we'll-
Alan, I have myself and Janelle, Sheriff Thurman, Chris Smith, Alan, you, and Jim. Was there anyone that I missed?
I think that's all I heard. I think that's it.
Okay, if you, Alan, need for Janelle, probably would be best for the administrative part of it,
Yeah,
to kind
Yeah,
of coordinate the meetings or, a plan.
yeah, I'll get with you guys
Okay.
after the meeting here, and we'll start figuring out some stuff.
Okay,
Okay. Let's move on here. Where are we at? Approval of salary range for the NG 911 technology manager. And that's the new position that we're looking at, correct?
yeah, Alan, at the last meeting, the board approved the IT position, but apparently not the salaries. So
Right.
that is what we're looking at, is approval of the salary and the steps.
Right, I know you guys were gonna do some research, and I see some stuff on the screen now. So we're looking at basically 102 for the first year. And this is just salary, right? Not benefits?
Correct.
Okay. And those of you that have IT people, does that look reasonable? And
Is this total cost of compensation, or it's salary only?
What's the, yeah.
It's salary.
That's salary only for an IT manager level. It's significantly more than just like an IT help desk person.
Okay, thank you.
And these numbers you guys generated from other agencies, am I correct?
Yeah, Rachel, I'm gonna let you speak on this a little bit. She had received some information from the county.
Good.
Yeah, so we based, this is like the county's top step for an IT manager for them coming here, right here at step 3. So we did a 5% escalator on the steps. We started it, we decreased by 5% to get to step 1, step 2, but right here is about where the county would top out. But in order to get somebody to fulfill all the needs that we have, which are different than county needs, that's kind of where that salary scale came from.
Okay.
And just an FYI, if we get a facilities manager, that is kind of the salary range we were looking at for their steps as well.
So a comment that I would make is if you're advertising the position and you show these ranges, you often end up in a situation where the individual applicant may ask for the top step.
We didn't show.
And you have these listed here by year. So that's kind of a question I have. Are we limiting the salary to what you show here for that year? Or in fact, is it possible that you would hire an individual in 2022 at that top step? Because if that were the case, I think that might be a bit on the high side. And I guess with regard to the IT manager, as I look at that, and I don't have the executive's, the chief executive officer's salary in front of us here, but I think it's more than chief executive officer. And so I guess that's part of my concern, or at least a conversation that we should have.
Alan, or I'm sorry, Kurt,
Yes.
we did not post the salary range when we did the announcement. We do have several applicants, several that look like qualified applicants with no salary range in there. And I agree on what level would they come in at, and I think that kind of like your director's position would be a board decision on, you know, are you just bringing them in at the step one? And, you know, is that negotiable, you know, based on their experience? And at what level is the board willing to do that? And maybe you don't want 6 steps.
Yeah, and I think, and correct me, Rachel, if I'm wrong, but I think our current executive director wage scale is at 120 currently. Is that about
That is
right?
correct. Yep. And they don't have any steps. They just have one flat rate.
But I
Okay.
think the job announcement was up to 135,000. And that was with Phil and Dave both on those announcements.
Okay, on the, for those position, for that position, the executive director position.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm following you. So what's your druthers here, guys?
How does this compare? And I don't mean to put Deanna on the spot here, but how does this compare to like her position now, salary ranges as she's filling this role?
So mine, currently I'm at step 6 and I'm at 116, I think. Is that right, Rachel?
I do not know off the top of my head. I was going to pull it up and check for you.
I think it's 116, 114 or 116, but it's top, I'm at top step.
Okay,
And the thought is that when Deanna retires, this person would kind of replace her.
right,
Is the thought.
right.
But would we bring him in at the top step?
I mean, I wouldn't recommend that.
No, we typically don't recommend that. Typically what we've done here from what I've seen is most people are hired in step 1 or step 2. Even if they have outside experience, that doesn't mean they necessarily have 911 experience. So typically we hire people in step 1 or 2. We just ask the board approve a range. We don't necessarily have to advertise the range until we get into, you know, closer the final candidates. And then, from my understanding, you as board members then approve a final offer for final candidates.
And Dan, I'm showing 114.
Okay.
Okay, well,
Well, if this is the going rate, I don't think, I'll just jump in here. I don't have a problem with the ranges, and I think we leave that up to the hiring committee as far as what the offer is based on the all the components of education and experience and training. I don't know that we necessarily need to put years on those.
No, I think that was more for budget stuff that we were doing.
Okay.
Yeah,
You start with a range, but I also agree with Kurt. Would not put this position above the director.
No.
To make sure the director's range does exceed this, and then we bring each person in individually where we think they fit.
So
would you entertain removing step 6 and just having 5 steps? Or just having 4 steps?
here's what I'd like to suggest. Having hired a few directors in my tenure, that we provide for a range. And if step 1 and 2 are the ranges we generally hire at, put those in the middle. In essence, call them steps 3 and 4. And go up, if you want, to 5 or 6, whatever, and then put steps 1 and 2 lower. So that when you go out and advertise, if you advertise this range, then those are the ones generally in the middle that we could say that's, as high as we can go for a new director, and still leave that up to the hiring committee, but not have that upper range up there above that of the directors.
Okay, so you're saying like number 1 becomes step 4. 2
No,
is
maybe 3.
3.
Step 3, step 4, 5, 6,
Okay.
1 and 2. We'll move to the
Okay.
beginning.
1 and 2
Okay.
get backed off.
We can do that.
What would be a good step 1? You think you want to go just 5% under these like we did?
If they're 5%, then that's probably what I would suggest.
Okay.
Do most of the other positions, are they 6 steps in the organization?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So is that everybody following that?
Yep. Makes
Suggestion?
sense. Makes sense.
Okay, so with that input, can we modify this then and approve this salary range with those modifications?
So just to be clear, Alan, the recommendation is to drop off step 6, create a new step 1, 5% below the current step 1?
Yeah, I think we're 2 steps below. So and Rachel's just putting stuff up here. So I think we start at just about 92 and then top out at, if we go 6 steps, we'd top out at about 118. So that would still be below what we currently have set as the executive director's salary.
I'm good with that as long as that meets market demand right now, as Kurt first pointed out. We're at a challenging time to recruit.
It is.
So as long as that is at or the range is even above market rates.
Kurt, would you have an issue if there was a highly qualified applicant? If we were to offer, at step 4 or 5?
Nope,
Okay,
nope, I wouldn't.
okay. Anyone else?
Hey, this is Andrew. No, I don't think we would. It all depends on what their qualifications are.
Correct. Agree 100%.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about some of these applicants we have and, we've attracted them without a salary, and I would be interested to see, where they're coming from. And I'm just thinking if somebody had to take a, $1,000 a month cut, they would be willing to do that. So
Mhm. Okay, so with all that, do we have a motion to accept this amended IT manager salary range?
I'd make the motion to do that.
Okay, Chet
Excuse me.
and Andy second.
Yep.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Are we pausing the facility still until we discuss it further, or what's the plan there?
Yeah, well, it's down under old business, so
Okay,
we may, and it's the length of our meeting, we may have to push that further out.
all
Board, so let's move on to board and committee reports. I got a note that from Troy that there was no TAC meeting and he had to step away. Did we have a fire TAC update? Not hearing any.
Brandon did tell me they didn't meet, and their next meeting's January 10th of next year.
Okay, so we'll just move right in to the interim director contract. I think everybody got a copy of that. It's essentially the same contract that we had with Bob Gregory. And just some very, very minor wording changes here and there, but the same hourly rate as we had for Bob. That's for up to 20 hours without chair approval of going over. So have people had a chance to look at that? Any questions?
I have a question, Alan.
Sure.
Is that proposal separate and apart from the current proposal that we have with Norm, or is that an addendum?
No, they're separate. We talked about that. Talked to Norm about that, and he feels that it would be easier for him to manage if it was separate. He thinks, though, that he would be able to accomplish much of what he's doing for the facilities management, though, within the same hours.
I almost see that as a conflict.
Okay.
Where he's the manager and he's the consultant overseeing the construction project, and he supervises that individual.
Okay. Frank, are you on? Can you weigh in on
Yes,
that?
sir. We didn't have a whole bunch of candidates, and Norm was interested. And I mean, his engineering expertise is excellent from his years at the port. Plus, he also was an executive director at the port. And I don't know if I see a conflict between the two. It's just basically kind of emerging. It's just paying for that time separately because he wanted to keep the contracts. And one could terminate, before the other. If it takes us 6 months or so to find a new executive director, he could be finished with his construction obligations before then. So I don't know if there is a conflict of interest, then we've got to go back to the drawing board and try and sort that out. And there just weren't, we looked around, we asked around, there were a lot of people with the experience that did not want it. So those are my thoughts, Kurt.
Well, I support Norm doing both functions. My concern is that we're doing it with separate contracts. If we could narrow it down to one, I think the auditors will have a concern with that as well. It's a little bit like putting the fox in charge of the hen house, so to speak. And I think that will be an issue with the auditors.
I brought that up as a concern, if you remember, at our last meeting as well. And if I remember right, Alan agreed to be more of a point of contact for reporting in his position as our facilities contract manager, to be reporting to Alan, as opposed to what we would normally expect him to report to the 911 director position. If I'm mistaken in that, Alan, at all, please let me know.
No, that I had agreed to do that. I don't know if that resolves the Kurt's concerns or not, but and I'm still willing to do that. So what are your thoughts?
You just shared.
We have, I'm not sure that Norm would back away from this if we decided to combine the two. He for his business purposes, he would have liked to keep them separate. I guess the other thing is his earliest start date would be November 8th. So we would have well, he'll be gone next week. So we'd have to quickly come together and make changes if we want to consolidate those. Thoughts?
Well, my only thought is I agree with Kurt, is that I think the auditors will go crazy over it. His analogy of the fox guard and the hen house is right on point. So whether he continues to do those things and you oversee that portion of it and then report to him, I think that would be cleaner. But I think we need to meld it into one contract. I agree from the auditor standpoint, they'll go crazy.
The issue with the two contracts is Norm is responsible, and I trust Norm, he's a great person, don't get me wrong, right. But I'm going to give you the viewpoint from a state auditor that Norm accounts for his own time. So when Norm puts down an hour towards facility oversight or construction management and an hour for operations, unless you're right there watching Norm in each and every hour and where he spends it, you don't know where he's really worked that time. And that's where the auditor is going to have a concern. Whereas if we're just paying him under one contract and he's billing us for his hours, we don't care where they're at. Okay. And that's the issue. And it will be much cleaner from an audit perspective. But again, the board can move forward in any fashion they wish, but I think this will come back to present some problems for us.
Okay. Well, I will ask for this then. If you would authorize me to sign the document once we get it combined, I will go back to Norm and with Frank's help, we'll meld these things together. So basically it's just one reporting system.
Because the contract amounts the same in both, correct?
Right.
The compensation, yeah, so that's not an issue.
No, it's just a matter of how we track hours and who tracks hours and that type of thing.
I mean, I obviously want to work with Norm too here, and I would hope that he could make that work within his his own timesheets.
Okay. So does that work for everybody else then, if we meld those together and then move forward?
Just
Yes,
have a quick question, Alan.
Mm-hmm.
Is Norm going to bill us and say, I worked 10 hours as the executive director, and then it will be processed with payroll, so he's paying the proper payroll taxes and all of that? Or is he like literally going to bill us the same way he bills us now, and we have to figure all of that out?
No, with melding together, it would be all under him under this employment contract. And so he would just submit all those hours. And then I guess for his personal piece, he would have to, with his bookkeeper or whatever he uses, separate out for his business, I would guess. Does that
Okay.
sound all right to everybody else?
Well, isn't Norm self-employed? I mean, we really don't pay any payroll taxes per se, do we, other than FICA or we don't even pay that, do we?
No, under this contract, he would be an interim employee for the authority. That brings him under our liability umbrella for the executive director parts of it. And that's one of the reasons we were looking at it separately.
Would he be able, would he, I guess, agree to do this under a consultant contract agreement? Where he's his own?
Well, I think the insurance piece is the hang up there. His current liability insurance doesn't have the same like errors and omissions type of coverage that he would feel he needs, or we would probably want him to have, that than him being an employee, where he would have the full insurance coverage that any of our senior staff has.
Is that something maybe he could look into?
Possibly, I suppose. I add something in there that would account for that cost, perhaps.
For that premium? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think it would be that much for a contract like that. I mean, you know, we have errors and omissions for several boards and
Right.
all of that.
So we can ask him to look into that and rewrite this if you would prefer. So he would just bill us hours then and not be an actual employee. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, and he could keep track breakdown of the hours either separate. I'm not separately, but I mean, you can send a bill in with so many hours for this one, so many for that one.
Right.
I don't see it's a big problem unless it, you know. Help or something.
Alan, just my 2 cents. I read through the contract and he did want to put his earnings into a deferred comp, which would be a pre-tax benefit. And I don't know how we could do that if he's just doing it as a professional service, but if we can, then I'm totally up for it. But I just wanted to just FYI.
Yeah, I think that would be up to him then to establish. I mean, there are accounts available to do those kinds of things. But yeah, you're correct that was one of his requests for that.
I guess I'd be willing, Alan, for you to have a conversation maybe with Norm, a further conversation, to see if there's something here that could be agreed to.
Okay. And so then would I have the authority to sign that agreement and so we can get him on board as early as possible?
I was gonna say, the longer this drags on, Alan, you just might not see the need to even hire someone. You're doing such a fine job.
Yeah, I wish you'd be quiet, Brad.
That's what I was thinking, that, you know, if you can't get Norm Alan, it looked good there behind that.
Well, you would probably have to pay for some additional housing and stuff for me then, because my wife would probably kick me out.
We got an extra room in the house.
So Alan, I don't know if you need a motion, but I'm in favor of you moving forward along with Frank's technical expertise and see if you can address what Kurt's concerns are with the auditor and issue and
Okay.
If I had,
moving forward with getting this going as soon as possible with those concerns, however that might work out with Frank's consultation.
if I understand correctly, it seems like the direction is that we all want to put it under one contract to keep him as a contractor, not as an employee. But at the same time, we need to be sensitive to the fact that as a engineering consultant, his insurance may not be covered if he's acting as an executive director. But the goal would be to keep him as a contractor as opposed to an employee. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
And then perhaps there may be some willingness to cover costs of additional insurance or something to that effect.
Right. I know he's in consultation with his accountant to help him with taxes issues. He may also need to talk to his insurer and make sure that he doesn't do anything that puts him outside of the coverage. And if there is cost, I understand that that 911 would be willing to reimburse him for that.
Okay. So was that a motion on your part, Jim?
Yeah, if you need a motion, then yes, a motion to authorize you to move forward to put the services of Norm, both positions under one contract with Frank's representation.
Okay.
I'd second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
I
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, administrative report. We're running way long here, folks. Is there anything specific that we need to discuss today before we get to, we do need an executive session, unfortunately, and the closed meeting, so we have some time. I would suggest that we suspend these last few items unless there's something critical and put them on next week, next meeting's agenda.
Alan,
Yes.
can I ask about why do we have the feedback? 3 new consoles. I was asked to go get a quote on that.
Yes. Okay. We'll talk about the consoles and then we'll push the other stuff out.
Super quick. Reached out to Watson Furniture, asked them about a lease option. The only lease option they had was we could pay for it over 5 years instead of upfront. For 3 consoles, the cost was $62,086. And if we did that over 5 years, I think the total was like 72. Maybe it was 70,000. It was 8,000 more.
Yeah.
And they also sent us a quote to move our existing furniture and all of our office furniture, and that was $9,100.
So there really wasn't an option to save money or potentially save money on a rental or lease
No,
option then. Okay. So do we want to move forward with those? Whether that was 3 additional consoles?
Yeah.
Okay. Board, what's your thoughts there? Do we want to add those consoles, which we're going to probably have to add anyway in the future? And we're not a way to save money right now.
And question for Deanna, what's the order time on that, or what time do you expect delivery?
well, they already know our timeline for the March that we want to move in. So we could take, I need to get a timeline. Because I don't know, I didn't say specifically I need them here by January. So they didn't seem that it was an issue, but I can get verification on that. Because we have to have them before. So once we take possession of that building, we want to be able to set up those 3 workstations and start putting equipment on them.
Right, and those 3 will allow us to then seamlessly transfer 911 services because we cannot have a break there.
Correct. We would actually take one of the supervisor workstations, those 3, set them up live, and we would have 4 workstations there, and we could go live there and then shut this down and then move all this other equipment out.
Right. And time is ticking.
Yes.
So what do I'll entertain a motion to approve the purchase of 3 additional consoles.
So moved.
Okay,
I'll second.
motion is second to approve the purchase of those 3 additional contracts for the move. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. The motion has passed, so we can purchase those.
Okay, and I'll let you know what the timeline is because I need them like now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, then we will move to executive session. And I think we have a couple of subjects to cover quickly. Under RCW 4230-110.
If I may, I mean, basically this is legal risk of current actions. Wanted to basically report to the board on closure of Dave's resignation and answer any questions. I don't think I will need more than about 5 minutes. If we do, then we can extend it.
Okay, and then we also have a short discussion on an outstanding grievance that I wanted to get some direction on.
So how much time do you think we would need for both of those?
I'm hoping only about maybe 15 minutes
Okay.
total.
Just to clarify, so we're not talking about negotiations. Right now, we do currently have another negotiation scheduled for next Tuesday, and that would be before the next board meeting. In that session, I don't foresee us really agreeing to anything. We're still just gathering information, so we don't necessarily need board information or approval yet, but I just wanted to clarify.
Well, I'll let the sheriff interject here because he's kind of our lead on that. So,
Well, a question for Frank in that regard. There's currently an attorney that services have been retained, and I wanted to discuss that, whether perhaps an unretention of that attorney, is that suitable for executive session or open session? We can go either way on that.
Alan, I mean, was what you were talking about, was that supposed to be covered in the closed session as opposed to the executive session? Am I missing it?
The grievance piece?
Oh,
I thought that,
okay. Nope,
that
I
would be an
understand.
executive session. Closed session, I thought would be
Then I think legal risk of current action would cover both.
okay. And Brad was talking about our current contractual agreement with an existing labor attorney, whether we keep that or not.
Okay, I'll add that to the list.
Okay, can we do that in executive session as well?
Yes, hang on.
So for now, nothing else on negotiations, correct? You don't need me to stay and present total comp spreadsheets or anything like that?
I think we can probably do that at our next meeting. What do you think, Brad?
Yeah, I think that's probably premature at this point.
Okay.
So we'll just hold that off until the next meeting. We've had plenty to talk about this meeting. Okay, so we're ready to move to executive session?
Yes.
Okay, Rachel, can you make us out for a short period of time here? Probably 15 minutes.
All right, I opened it up. Bill, did you want to join? I think you're the only one left in here.
Rachel, I think he went on a call. He's sitting at the
Oh,
computer
okay.
anymore.
Thank you.
Yep.
Oops. I am so sorry. I clicked the wrong button. I reopened the meeting, sorry.
Okay, we good?
Are we back in the other session now?
We're back, we're in executive session, right?
No, we're back in the main room and the
Okay.
live stream is still on.
Yeah, it is.
We need to
So
go back.
Rachel, can you pop us back?
Sorry, did you guys get a request to join again? I opened them all back.
I did not.
You didn't, okay.
I didn't get the,
Let me click this close all rooms and then it should pop back up. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Now, are you seeing it?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello.
Are you guys done, Jim?
Yes, we are.
Okay,
They might be having, I know last time we did this, they were having a hard time trying to figure out how to come back in. So
okay.
I'm sure they'll figure out here quickly. There they are. They're all coming now.
Will you just make sure Alan does not adjourn before I get back? I'm gonna step away from my desk really fast. I gotta grab Deanna.
Yes, I'll let him know.
Thank you.
Alan was having trouble getting back.
I just kicked them all back in.
All right, good.
Okay, we're back in there in a regular session now.
Hang loose for just a second. Rachel had to step away.
Okay,
I think she just wanted to make sure that you didn't adjourn before she returned.
right. And I think we just have that one item of business that Brad was discussing, and then we can adjourn after that.
And Alan, Deanna wanted to say one thing before you adjourn as well.
Okay. Let's do Brad's piece first and then. So Brad, do you want to make the motion? Are you back with us?
Looks like he's on the phone.
Yeah, I'm back there. I have another 1 o'clock, but anyway, I just propose a motion that we terminate the agreement we have with the Wesley Group for labor negotiations. It was open-ended, but either party can terminate it with 30-day notice. And I would recommend that we terminate that agreement and move forward in another direction to be discussed later. So,
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second, Hamilton.
Okay. Moved and seconded to terminate the agreement with the Wesley Group. All in favor?
aye.
All right.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Okay, Deanna, you had one more thing for us?
Yep, really quick. Mark Palins passed away on the 18th. He was our radio consultant that's worked with us since 2015. As far as financially, I had Rachel check. I think we're all squared away, got all of his last invoices. I'll follow up with his wife, Gail, who I spoke to last week, and make sure that everything's in order there. I have reached out to Columbia County that works with a consulting firm to see if I could get some information from them as well. With the hopeful agreement with Norm, there's probably some things that he could help us with, but not at the level of, any kind of studies or things like that we might need.
Okay, well, if you, Deanna, can you send the board's condolences?
Yeah, absolutely.
To his family. We certainly appreciate the assistance that he's provided in the past, and we know this is a tough time, so if you send the condolences, I'd appreciate that.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, I think we've done all we can do today, so unless somebody has something further, the meeting's adjourned.
All right, thank you.